Good evening and welcome to Hot News. We are live on Pan-African Television. We are also live on Facebook at Pan-African Television, on YouTube at Pan-African Television, as well as 48 African countries. Those watching us on all those African countries, let me say good evening to you all. You can join in the conversation by sending in your views, comments, and contributions on our WhatsApp text line displayed on the screen. I'll make a time and read all those out for you. You can as well leave your suggestions, questions, and whatnot on our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at Pan-African Television. Those of you watching us on Facebook can share the Facebook Live for other people to also get an opportunity to watch tonight's edition of the program. Please share the Facebook Live for other people to also watch tonight's edition of the program. My name is Justice Appiah, and tonight on Hot News, we are looking at a litany of issues. What are those issues we are looking at? We'll go straight to Parliament and look at what is happening in terms of rejection and approval of the 2022 budget. You know that it's still hanging. We don't know if it has been approved or rejected, because earlier minority rejected it, later majority approved it. Now we don't know if they are getting to a consensus building as to how the situation is going to be handled and all of that. But today, the office of the minority leader, of course, issued a statement, and the statement was issued to the first deputy speaker in a very strongly worded reply to the deputy speaker. You know, he said that as a deputy speaker, he threw a motion out because he is not the speaker of parliament, and it had to do with the legality or constitutionality of the approval of the budget by the majority side. When the legality of the approval was questioned on the floor of parliament, a motion was actually filed to overturn their decision, and it was the first deputy speaker who sat in for the speaker of parliament himself. At a point, he said that, well, he was part of the majority because they needed about 138 members, half of parliament, to be able to take a decision, and he justified his inclusion as being part of the 138 people. But at the point, he also said that, well, he, the first deputy speaker, the fact that he sat in for the speaker of parliament doesn't make him, or didn't make him the speaker of parliament. And so, due to that, the minority leader today issued a statement to him. Also, you know that the Otumfuo Setutu has advised or has admonished the members of parliament that they cannot frustrate government. He's just talking about the fact that the legislature cannot frustrate the executive. Well, we will delve deeper into some of those issues. We also look at corruption fight under this government. Corruption fight under this government. Special prosecutor last week came out to say that his office is preparing about 31 cases. As it stands now, they have about 31 cases to prosecute and all of that. We'll delve deeper into some of those issues and look at how this government is as well fighting corruption. I've been joined in the studio by Dela Liswakpo, who is a member of the National Democratic Congress communications team. Dela, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening, Justice. I'm doing great.
Right, I'm fine. Also in the studio is Mr. Solomon Owusu, who is a member of the New Patriotic Party communications team. It's also good evening.
Good evening, Justice.
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I do very well.
I should have seen you this morning. Unfortunately,
we couldn't make it. I was engaged somewhere else.
Yes. So I'll start with you, Dela, on the issue of but before, I would want to read the letter issued by the minority leader, and it says minority leader Haruna Idrisu has taken a strong exception to the dismissal of his motion by the acting Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Sewusu, by describing the latter's decision as abuse of discretionary power. Mr. Sewusu, who is the first deputy speaker, had refused the motion by the Tamale South Member of Parliament to overturn his own ruling of admitting a rejected motion on the 2022 budget statement and government economic policy. Haruna Idrisu himself had led the minority to cause the motion by Minister of Finance Ken Ofori-Atta to be lost. Speaker Alban Sumana Bagbin was the presiding officer. was then presiding over the proceedings. But 5 days later, after the Speaker had left for Dubai for a medical review, the majority, with Mr. Osewusu in the Speaker's chair, admitted the motion and, in effect, approved the 2022 budget. But Haruna Idrisu sought to overturn the decision with his motion, which was refused in a letter signed by the Clerk of Parliament, Cyril Insia. But on Monday, the minority leader also had a reply for the First Deputy Speaker. Quote, kindly take note that the NDC Minority Caucus, which had, that the NDC Minority Caucus, which I lead, and my good self vehemently disagree with the position of the motion and your conduct in this matter. Quote, we take the strong view that your conduct affronts orders 79, 81, 82, and 90 of our standing orders and can no longer be tolerated. In that regard, we are resolved to pursue this matter further with the Right Honorable Speaker upon his return. Unquote. And you have the letter over there signed by Honorable Haruna Idrisu, Member of Parliament for Tamale South constituency. And I'll start with you, Della, on this particular matter, the issue of the 2022 budget approval and rejection, you know, the back and forth in Parliament.
Yes, good evening to you.
Right, good evening.
Brother, this issue about 2022 budget, which the government basically intends to further worsen the hardship that Sudanese are going through by imposing these draconian taxes on innocent Ghanaians. It's something that has been greeted with a lot of condemnation, a lot of rejection, a lot of displeasure by the good people of this country. I believe that even sometimes when we engage in NDP members of the record, they admit, to us, candidly, that indeed they are not even in support of this this budget that is designed to worsen the plight of the innocent people or innocent citizens. I have always, the NDC position relative to the 2022 budget has been very consistent. We have adopted a principal position. The 137 gallant members of Parliament representing their various constituencies have spoken unequivocally relative to a message that was given to them by their constituents as far as the 2022 budget is concerned. And I think the NDC have demonstrated that indeed it's a political party that have the interest of the good people of this country at heart.
Right.
And they will stop at nothing but to champion the interest of the good people of this country. We were against the unity, which the President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo Bawumia-led administration, what people refer to as the Bawumia tax, that this is once again a clear demonstration of incompetence on the part of the current regime, and especially when you listen to some of the commentary that they made prior to the 2016 election. In fact, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia had admitted during a live radio interview that indeed he doesn't subscribe to imposing tax on Mumu. That was 19th of August 2020. Indeed, the NPP, when they were in opposition, had promised the good people of this country that they intend to move the country from taxation to production. And they lambasted the elsewhere President Mama-led administration when it comes to taxation. Indeed, at a point in time, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia told us that he had worked in Bank of Ghana before. He has come to appreciate the fact that there's so much resources and revenue in this country. He even thinks that we can industrialize this country without borrowing. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia even held series of lectures. Even at a point in time, he said, if we intend to, the only way we'll be able to construct our road, fasten our road and make it resemblance of what happened in other jurisdictions and what have you, is basically to point toll booths all over the country, and the proceeds will be used in constructive ways. That is according to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. And I have always maintained that nothing indict a man than his own words. So I have admonished my colleagues from the NPP side. I think that if they decide to go to any major conference or congress as enshrined in their party constitution, I think one of the things that they have to do, instead of allowing the president to deliver a speech or the vice president to deliver a speech or any of the notable personalities within the rank and file of the NPP to deliver a speech, I think one thing that they have to do is they should just play the sound bites of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo prior to the 2016 election. I believe by the time they are done listening to the current president and the vice, I believe majority, almost 2/3 of the NPP members will leave that particular auditorium so disappointed, and probably some of them might even relinquish their membership as members of the NPP.
I see.
Because you're a journalist, I mean, you've seen some of the video trending on social media relative to what Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia said when he was the vice presidential candidate. But just think, what are the facts?
The fact is the NDC have stood on its ground. The 137 members of parliament want to be on the side of innocent Ghanaians. They don't want to be on the side of a regime that has basically, out of their penchant and their love and their desire to engage in daily corruption, have run this country to the grounds. And anytime we talk about this, you want to impose tax on the momo to the extent that our folks who are residents in abroad, if they have to remit us or they have to send us something, you intend to impose a tax of 1.75%. And the argument has always been advanced that who tax revenue? That I said that here, Justice. That imagine a relative of yours call me and say, Justice, I'm not feeling well. And you decide to send an amount of money to that relative. President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia are saying that they are going to impose a tax of 1.75%. If that relative probably is unable to go to the drugstore to go and get drug, and he decide to transfer that money to another person to get him or her the drug, they deduct another 1.5% from that money. If that person gets to the pharmacy shop and says, listen, I didn't come with physical cash, I'm going to make a payment through Momo. Once again, they deduct an amount of 1.7% tax. What kind of draconian tax is this? And the NDC as a political party will not be part of this hardship that President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia deliberately intend to impose on the innocent people of this country. We will not be part of it. The NDC as a political party.
But your General Secretary, Johnson Asodin Ketia, has admitted that the National Democratic Congress is not against, taxation. It's not against, this government taxing the good people of Ghana. So, I mean, what's your argument?
That has always been the... You see, that's why I say that is the difference between the NDC and the MPP.
Okay.
Did you ever hear from probably inception any member of the NDC made a bold declaration and make an emphatic statement that Ghana can develop without taxation? Have you ever had any member of the NDC made a statement to the effect that indeed we can industrialize this country without borrowing? So the NDC as a political party is not against imposition of tax.
Okay.
But we are against imposing tax on Momo, on the U-levy. We are against imposing tax on remittances that come from abroad.
How nuisance is the e-levy to your era when you were taxing condoms, sleepers, and all those things?
Justice, you see,
how different is it?
Anytime this argument is raised, what basically that's why I keep on. What basically you intend to do is you want to create an atmosphere or maybe a conversation of equalization.
And when it happens like that, we basically more or less downplay.
But you don't introduce taxes during your regime, and then we want to prevent this regime from introducing taxes, taxing Ghanaians to develop the country.
The point is this. I keep on asking you, what was the position of the NPP prior to the 2016 election?
Okay.
Why are we... That's why I keep on saying that, listen, if journalists in this country decide to subject Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to a strict proof relative to some of the commentary he made prior to the 2016 election, I am telling you the honest truth. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia will not have any moral courage to hold on to Mike and even talk about the economy. Because the NDC has never spoken against taxation anyway. The NDC has never described any tax to be nuisance. And as we speak, the current situation as we find ourselves in this country, it will take somebody who is highly unconscionable, who is insensitive to the plight of the innocent Ghanaian. It will take somebody who does not appreciate the suffering that already Ghanaians are going through for that person to master the courage and say, I want to burden Ghanaians with further taxes.
And the question we keep on asking ourselves is this: what is this whole tax meant to achieve?
If taxes are not introduced, how do you expect the government to develop the state?
How much money have gone wayward, wastage, when it comes to irregularity? How much has this government borrowed so far? 243 billion? And you're telling me that 243 billion was unable to construct road, was unable to construct hospital, was unable to construct what they call schools?
And you are talking about
re-levy with an estimate of 7.2 billion, and you are abandoning your hope, you are having so much confidence on 7.2 to transform the economy,
when almost about 243 billion was unable to transform the economy. What we have spent in terms of irregularity, almost 12.58 billion, is the amount of money the good people of this country have lost because of irregularity, because of corruption. How do you convince Ghanaians that the president that has developed penchant, that has developed a taste of going for luxurious what we call private jets, that even Ghanaians are lamenting about it? He said, I don't care. I don't care the extent to which the expression is given or displeasure relative to my my penchant of having a private jet and what have you, costing the
taxpayers £15,000. And so how do you expect Ghanaians to pay tax
so that you'll be able to
satisfy your ostentatious, your luxurious lifestyle? You want Ghanaians to pay an amount of money so that a PPA, what they call public procurement boss,
within less than few months or few years of being in power, will have almost about 60 million plus in his account, and the president will still have the courage and the boldness to come and tell that indeed he's fighting against corruption?
The question we keep on asking, the amount of money that they have borrowed so far, what have they used the money for? What has that money been used for? Tell me, you're a journalist, point to me.
Free SHS.
One district. You see, the more we continue, you see, the more we allow the MP.
No, wait a minute. I'm saying you're asking me, you've asked me a question. I'm saying that, well, I know that this government has implemented free.
How much have they? How much?
I know that they have started their initiative.
Exactly.
One district, one factory.
Where?
I know that one village, one dam. They have done it in the north. I also know that one constituency, one ambulance has been provided. I know that the digitization thing this government has started. Of course, they have chalked some successes with regards to this. They have done a lot of things.
So let's deal with the specifics. You are making mention of free SHS. How much have they spent so far? Okay. You're talking about a government that has grown to excess of 243 billion.
And you're talking about a government that has not spent more than 7 billion when it comes to free SHS.
And you want us to assume that...
I didn't mention just free SHS.
No, listen, you mentioned what we call one district, one factory.
Yes, I mentioned...
Do you know how much President Mahama... You're talking about stimulus package, you're talking about stimulus package? Something that President Mahama did? If you are talking about constructing factory, by virtue of the fact that you are giving a stimulus package to an organization or a company, then President Mahama had constructed no less than 1,000 companies in this country.
Don't forget that they gave jobs to the teeming youth.
Which youth? The NAPCO. That's even some of them in terms of allowances and whatever. It's in arrears almost about 6 months. Have you listened to statement? Have you read a statement emanating from the NAPCO outfit?
They have restored the teacher training and nurses training allowances.
How do you expect them to fund all these things? And how much of that money that they have borrowed that have been allocated when it comes to what we call teachers and what they call it training allowances? What kind of infrastructure projects? Where are the hospitals? The agenda 888 that was amended to agenda 1, where are the hospitals? Did you not listen to the president, what he said relative to the timeline that he gave? As far as the agenda 888, where is it? Where are the hospitals? Well, tell me, I just want you to point me to when we come to capital, what we call investment, capital infrastructure. Where are they? Where are they? So you see, the only thing that the NPP Ghanaians can remember the NPP President Nana and Dr. Babubia is when they come to manufacturing of corruption. When it comes to the enviable record that they have chopped when it comes to corruption. I can talk about PDS. I can talk about the Japan's stinking bill. I can talk about the missing excavators that even according to the NPP General Secretary, as part of their policy designed at the NPP headquarters, they say they don't have money, and the only way for the party to get money is to sue the excavators from Ghanaians who are engaged in legitimate mining activities, then sell it because the party need money. You're talking about instances. Tricycle were missing. Police were diverted. The bus scandal.
Right.
You're talking about instances. This is a regime that has practiced family and friend. So if you're talking about instances that, we should be able to appreciate the government. We should be able to agree with the government. We should be able to accept the fact that, the taxation, because that is the only way we intend to develop this country. Right. Then the argument suffice. Like, this is a regime. You are talking about the fact that all the amount of money that they have borrowed, there's nothing concrete, there's nothing evidential to show that indeed this is what we have used the money for. And yet, you want us to allow them to borrow more so that at the end of the day, they use it to satisfy the president of sensational life, so that the president, at the end of the day, according to his defense minister, he will be able to hire a president.
Before I go to Mr. Osu, let me ask you this final question. The finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, in his press conference, has served a notice, has cautioned, the implications of the rejection of the budget. If you look at the back and forth between the minority and the majority in Parliament, coupled with the advice given to them by the Asante Hene Otumfuo, right? Are we not going to see this country, slowed its progress, especially looking at how the parliamentarians are dealing with the issue of the budget?
Yes,
especially the minority.
Yes, were you in the voter race during this tidal wave?
I was there, yeah.
You saw what happened to the indigenous voter race, especially Keta. You think it was wrong for
it's not just Keta, Keta, and
you think it was wrong for the minority to make a strong advocacy?
But that has been included in the budget.
Do you think it was wrong for the majority to raise an issue with respect to the reintroduction of Ejapa?
They have reviewed it.
Do you think it was wrong? So I am actually telling you that. Do you think it was wrong for the minority to have raised an issue related to Eka Energy?
They have reviewed it. The minister said it.
Do you think the minority, people who have been elected to hold the government accountable by their constituents, now listen, you are there to protect the public purse. You are there to ensure that there's scrutiny. You are there to ensure that our interest is being protected. And you think that the president of the Republic of Ghana, the vice president, who made us aware, the reason why there was an introduction of the benchmark value, are you not aware the reason they cited? They talk about what we call in terms of it's going to increase mobilization of revenue. Did they not tell us? Did they not tell us about the fact that it's going to reduce what we call smuggling? Has that changed? Are you not aware of the fact that once there's a reversal relative to this benchmark value, there's going to be an increase in goods and services?
Right.
Are you not aware of the fact that there's going to be a 15% increase when it comes to government, what we call services? That today, if somebody unfortunately lose a relative, when the person goes to the mortuary, there's a 15% increase in government services. When you go to the passport office, when you go to the Food and Drugs Authority, when you go to the birth, what they call it.
But are you also aware that the failure to approve the budget before 2022, government cannot operate, salary workers cannot be paid, we are virtually crashing this government?
Well, this is the point is this. Unless we want to assume that if indeed the government have inserted into the budget something that is so inimical, something that will prove to be adverse on the life of the innocent people of this country.
Minority has raised 5 issues.
And, and one of the things that has been topical, that has become so topical, has to do with the levy. Go to the market, and I will tell you one thing. I went to Appiah market. I mean, witness what do you call it? An engagement by a civil society relative to this levy. Go and talk to the marketmen at Appiah market.
Right.
And the way they are going through frustration, the lamentation, the displeasure, the revulsion that they are expressing relative to the e-levy. And they are telling the minority side of parliament that, listen, our hope and confidence in you.
Okay.
We have reposed our trust in you.
I'll come back.
You are
to
the
you.
only people that can salvage us from the current situation that we are going through. And I don't think the minority should disregard the suffering of the masses.
Okay.
Because that is the only way that they will prove to the innocent Ghanaians suffering out there that he did. They are there to protect their interests, not to protect the interests of what we call the political class.
Right, I'll come back to you. Yes, you're still watching Hot News right here on Pan African Television with me, Justice Appiah. Keep your messages coming in. I'll make a time and read all those out for you. If you're watching us on Facebook, please share the Facebook Live for other people to also watch tonight's edition of our program. Let me say good evening and happy birthday to Mr. Kwesi Kwarteng, PR for Ministry of Education. Kwesi, happy birthday. Kwesi is a brother. Once again, happy birthday to my brother Kwesi Kwarteng.
Kwesi, happy birthday.
He was a PR for Ministry of Education. Bro, enjoy your
Did you say
day.
he was a PR? He's still
Who is?
okay.
I didn't say he was. I'm saying that he is a
Okay.
PR. He's a PR for Ministry of Education. Kwesi, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. And now I'll come to you, Mr. Osu, on the 2022 budget.
Yes.
And I mean the back and forth in Parliament. The Otumfuo has also spoken. I don't know if you've listened to him. It's a worry to him that the parliamentarians are dictating, I mean, in quotes, to the executive. The rejection of the budget is one that he is not okay with, and has advised accordingly that they should stop frustrating the government. Quite apart from that, I've read the letter from the minority leader, and you know that there has been problems in terms of the approval and whether or not the first deputy speaker should have counted himself as part of the 138 members of parliament they needed at the time to approve the budget and all of that. It has become a problem. The budget has not been passed. Neither has it been, rejected. I mean, so to speak, because they are trying to reach a consensus and see how best they can get the issue resolved. But are we not heading to doom if things will continue to go this way?
Thank you very much, Justice, and good evening to Dela and your viewers. I don't see the hula baloo about this budget. As we speak, the budget actually has been passed. And,
I see.
It's just what I call parliamentary gymnastics that we are all going through. If you look at what happened on the 26th, where 137 members of parliament from the minority group said they had passed the budget. Clearly, Article 104 shows that indeed what they did was illegal, because if the constitution...
Article 104 shows that what the minority did was illegal.
Because if you read Article 104, which you can read to your viewers, it states clearly that to be able to, as it were, make a decision. There are two numbers you need in parliament.
Yes.
First of all, you need 1/3 to start
A quorum. Right.
Now, to take a decision or make a decision, you need half a parliament.
Okay.
And obviously, 275 divided by 2 is never 137, unless my mathematics teacher...
It should be 137.5.
Exactly.
But because we are dealing with human beings, we make it 138.
And that's why when you did mathematics, when you did statistics, when it is 5,
you run it.
To the
run the figure.
Really, you needed
that's
138 members of parliament to be able to, as it were, make a decision.
Right.
And so what the minority did was not proper. In terms of what the majority did,
before we move to what the majority did, the minority in their rejection of a budget, has given very good reasons as to why that was done, and they think that what they did was within the remit of the law. And this is their explanation. According to the minority, in fact, they had 274 people in parliament that day.
That is according to them.
According to them. In fact, if you check the parliamentary register, sort of, let me put it that way, they have a name for it. You realize that members of parliament who had registered that day were 274.
As on paper.
On paper,
yes.
On record, and parliament has captured that. Now, so to them, there were 274 people in parliament, except Honorable Ajasafo, who was absent that day. So to them, they had the numbers that day to approve or reject the budget. What happened was that at a point, the finance minister went to parliament. He wanted to meet leadership of both sides, and the decision had they had to make a decision. And of course, the noes had it at the time, but the majority side felt that the Speaker of Parliament, Aban Bagrin, treated the finance minister with some kind of, he disrespected the finance minister. For that reason, they also walked out. But to the minority, the fact that the majority walked out, that didn't mean that they didn't have the numbers in parliament to be able, because they had more than half of the numbers in parliament to approve or reject the budget. And then the absence shouldn't affect the approval or rejection of it, but and they rejected it. So it was within the law. They had more than 130.
They didn't have more. They had 137. So you come to Pan-African team.
But have you? I mean, I
understand their scenario, and I am saying that's why I'm coming to the point that you come to Pan-African TV. We go to your logbook. We realize that Justice Appiah has logged in to come and host a program. Now we come to the studio. Justice is not here.
But Justice was present.
No, Justice for me. When we came to the studio, Justice wasn't present, and that is where I take. You could have come in the morning earlier enough to come and just put your name there and go. But when it mattered most, Justice was nowhere to be found. That is where I premise my. And in any case, if the minority, that's why I said it's parliamentary gymnastics. If the minority really believed what they were doing, when the majority went to parliament, they were also there. You understand? They could have stayed over. They could have taken part in what you call the voting. It would have been 137. That would have amounted to a rejection. Is that not the case? What prompted the minority to leave the chamber? Because you see,
but don't you think that the minority that earlier rejected the budget, their decision to go and sit there in order to get the budget approved or get it rejected would have meant that they had rescinded on their earlier decision to reject the budget.
But the point is that the minority claims they want to reject the budget.
But they feel that the budget had been rejected, so there's no business. They don't need to go there in terms of blessing business.
Listening to the minority leader even gives me the credence that the minority never intended and they never rejected the budget.
When did he say that?
I mean, at a point in time, he said after explaining the e-levy to him, he felt the e-levy has to come to 1%. Did you hear him say that? I mean, an informal even captured here. I was saying the last time here.
Right.
And pressure had to be brought on to him for him to rescind his earlier position, which had been, as it were, explained to him vividly. We are building a nation. I'm happy my brother said that they are not against taxation. So what are we discussing? If you are not against taxation, what are we discussing? Out of the lot, the budget for the various sectors, the NDC raised 5 issues, which you rightly put into perspective.
Right.
The issue to do with the ECA, Ejapa, Kita, the benchmark value, and then 1.75%. As we speak, 4 out of that has been taken out. So what are we discussing? It is about the e-levy. But the issue is whether or not, as a country, we can continue to borrow to sustain the development.
But why is government also adamant on scrapping or reducing the e-levy?
Because we are faced with a reality. The reality of the day is that we have a lot of infrastructural deficit. You and I know every now and then that people are crying within their localities. Absence of good roads, hospitals, schools, etc., etc. Do you continue to borrow at an exorbitant interest rate, which loan you will still pay with the taxes that you collect from your people, or you force your people to pay, so that we can carry out our development without necessarily adding to the total loans that we always contract. Listening to, we have borrowed 240 billion. Now the government say we don't want to hear the lies on the continually mentioning you have borrowed 240. Now you want the Ghanaian to ask it to contribute to the development of the country. Well, less than 2.3 million people pay direct.
But the argument is that government could have used other innovative ways of generating revenue for the country, not necessarily taxing mobile money and all of that, knowing very well that a lot of people who patronize mobile money are the poor.
You see, let us, there are two taxes, types of taxes. We have the direct and the indirect.
Yes.
I see the Momo tax as an indirect tax. It's a tax that you can do away with. Because, believe you me, it's not everyone that does Momo. And so long as you are not doing Momo, you are not paying that tax. And let us understand that without also the taxes, we cannot, as it were, develop as a country. So honestly, I don't see the whole about this tax.
Right.
You don't do Momo, you don't pay. You do Momo, you pay something towards the development of this country. Don't forget that a lot of people are outside the tax bracket of this country. People in this country, majority do not pay taxes. If you have a population of about 30.8 million and a workforce of about 13 million, and you have less than 2.3 million paying direct taxes, how do we develop this country? So the government is faced with this challenge. How to, as it were, enter the pool where transactions are taking place so that you can make some money there to come and support the developmental agenda of this country.
But this is a government that promised the good people of Ghana that they will change Ghana's economy from taxation to production. What has happened to that mantra?
So we came to government in 2017 and scrapped close to 13 taxes, including financial service tax of 17.5%. That was similar to what we are discussing today.
That's not true.
You understand? Again, local flight. You would pay a VAT if you ever bought a local flight. That was killing the local industry. So when we told the people of this country that we wanted to move the country from taxation to production, that was what we were talking about. All the taxes that we scrapped from this is what is propelling this country into that development that we wanted. And for that matter, I don't see why we should have an issue with it. If the NDC came back and told the people of this country that taxes are not good, then we have an issue to discuss. So long as that they agree with us that indeed it's only taxes that we can use to develop this country, Justice, I don't see where the Hula Baloo is, where the argument is. Unless you show me where the argument is, I can't see it.
But the only issue I think is with the 1.75% e-levy is about how Ghanaians are complaining. You know, a lot of Ghanaians are complaining. They think that the network services are already charging, service tax, and then government is adding 1.75% to it. You know, the network services are already charging 1%, and government is adding 1.75%. So any transaction you do now, you're paying like 2.75%.
Yes,
which is on the high. It's too much.
Yes, as I'm sitting down here, if I told you that I've ever had to pay tax, I'll be lying to you. Who wants to pay tax? Nobody wants to pay tax. The mere fact that a child doesn't want to take a bitter pill when the child is sick does not mean, as a parent, you won't do the right thing. We have to. You understand? And when those that are saying the 1.75 is on the higher side, they must suggest alternatives. You understand? If 1.75 is on the higher side, what are you bringing on the table? After all, it takes two to tango. And this situation, the 137 parliament we have now, is showing the Ghanaian that whatever decision is taken in parliament is from the two parties. So tomorrow, assuming this budget passes, right? And I know it's going to pass anyway, because this morning I heard Okuye to say by Thursday they are going to discuss the appropriation. Once we get to the appropriation stage, it means they are all on the same. So the
expectations are that maybe by Thursday, government will do something around 1.75%. And they also come on board.
Even if they bring, if it is doable, because you see, don't forget, budgets are done for a specific year. This budget is for 2022. The government has seen the problems or confronting this country, or that will confront this country in 2022. So it's year specific. If we do not do that, where would it take us to? You understand? So you have to deal with the peculiar issues that will confront us in 2022 by raising enough revenue. Unfortunately for us, COVID has come to destroy almost all economies. Now you cannot even go outside this country and say you are going to borrow. The people that you want to go and borrow from, they are also struggling. So you have to look within and make sure that we squeeze your people. It's rather unfortunate. We should have, and I always say that as a result of our inability in the past to manage ourselves well, to accumulate enough revenue, so that in tough times we could fall on that. It's what has brought us to this far.
Right.
We don't have it, so we cannot pretend as though we will live as people who are rich, or as a country that is rich. You understand?
Is the decision to tax to tax mobile money and all of that, the 1.75%, e-levy, not contradicting the position of the vice president when he was earlier interviewed and said that, never would this government, tax mobile money and all of that, and he admitted that there are a lot of poor people on mobile money, and there will be no need for those people to be taxed. Is this decision by government not contradicting that of the vice president?
Governments are put in place to take difficult decisions.
Okay.
And to the extent that the vice president, I don't know what informed the decision to make that statement. However, because governments are put in place to make that crucial decisions, I do not want to, as it were, bring in the vice president at this stage. I want to deal with the government, what the government feels is good for this country.
But prior to 2016, now let's put the vice president aside. Prior to 2016, the then presidential candidate for the New Patriotic Party, now the president of the Republic of Ghana, President Danko Akufo-Addo, said something. And Ghanaians will remember, if they recall, President Akufo-Addo at the time said, Ghana, we are sitting on money, yet we are hungry. In Akan, he said that Yetesikasu Nazo Komodi. It means that the president is very much aware that there's money somewhere he would use in running the state. Why are you now taxing Ghanaians here and there just to run the state?
So if you put that statement in proper context, the president says we are sitting on money. The money is with the people, the citizens. He is finding ways of trying to squeeze to develop.
Don't forget that within that same period, he said that we won't tax you Ghanaians. We are rather changing the economy from taxation to production. So it means that he saw some money sitting somewhere without necessarily taxing people.
First of all,
he had wanted to use in developing the state.
You would have to agree with the president because before the president came to power as a candidate, there was nothing like a free SHS in this country.
Right.
So he coming into power and being able to do the free SHS tells you that there was money sitting somewhere.
What's the source of funding for the free SHS?
That is partly from the oil, and also from taxes.
That this government has borrowed more than from Nkrumah to John Mahama. What have you used?
And then again, that is not true. You see, statistically, when President Kufuor was leaving power, this country was, our total debt portfolio was 9 billion.
9 billion, okay. We'll do the calculation.
Yes, so let's do the percentage change.
Let's
you see where we have a problem. You count and move us from 9 billion to 122 billion.
So 9 billion, right?
So let's do the percentage change. Don't do the number. If you do the number,
9 billion
to 122.
To 122 billion. Okay.
So you did.
Then took it from 122 billion to how much?
To 341 billion. So in terms of percentage change,
let's deal with the nominal.
we are dealing with percentage. So you deal with the nominal. I'm not interested in your. Okay. Let's deal. I want to deal with the percentage change.
Because why do you want to deal with the percentage change?
Really? You see,
percentage is clear.
The 341 billion. It includes the interest on the 122 that we came to meet. Because every loan attracts interest. Is that not the case?
Right.
So you cannot, in the same vein, attribute everything constituting the 341 billion to only the borrowings by the New Patriotic. But that's why I want us to do the percentage change. Right. So if you took over a debt of 9 billion and took us to 122 billion, that is 1,255%. We to do from 122 billion to 341. That is 179%. How can anybody compare 1,255% to 179%? Justice. Why do we do this? So that's why when my brothers are talking about borrowing, I don't want them to go there. I don't know how they see this. Merely taking the face value of it doesn't mean anything.
let's also do now. I mean, Ghanaians have understood the percentage wise.
Yes.
Now let's look at the nominal.
So you agree with me that in percentage terms,
the percentage
NDC did the greatest.
Well, yes, but let's also look at the nominal figures. So President Kufuor left it at 9 billion, and they took it to 122 billion. It means that they borrowed 113 billion in excess. Is that not it?
Yes.
Okay. So in their 8 years, they borrowed 13 billion.
Yes.
Okay. And you took it from 122 billion to 341 billion in 5 years. 5 years, right? In 5 years. Okay. So it means that you have borrowed in excess 219 billion.
219. So
how on earth are you able to convince the ordinary Ghanaian watching us that somebody who has borrowed 290 billion has performed better in terms of borrowing than 130 billion?
So there again, let's remind Ghanaians that between 2013 and 2016 we didn't have light. You see the backlog of unemployment that we have. You would agree with me, unless you want to tell me we're not in this country. That this country experienced.
I just want you to explain to me how 113 billion is more than 219 billion.
No. I have told you that you see, definitely every successive government will borrow more than the previous government.
Right. Because would you admit that when we look at the nominal figures, you have borrowed more than from Nkrumah to John Mahama? You have borrowed more than that. Would you admit, if you look at the nominal figures? Because from Nkrumah to John Mahama, the debt was at 122 billion. You have taken it within a space of 5 years, and you have borrowed up to 341 billion, in excess of 219 billion.
So we did a percentage change, and this was phenomenal. Okay. Now you are coming to nominal, and it will seem that so what I'm saying is that then you go into why we are borrowing more.
Right.
And I'm telling you that
I just want you to tell Ghanaians how
we have borrowed
billion is more than 290
what I'm saying is that we have borrowed more than the NDC in terms of the nominal figures.
Yes. Okay, right.
That one, there's no doubt about it. But I'm going ahead to explain to you why it is the case in our situation.
Right.
Someone came and decided to, as it were, destroy all companies in this country. Go and check the budget. Let's check sector by sector growth. You understand?
Right.
Because the engine of all industries is energy. So for you to take this country through power crisis for 4 good years, what were you doing? And that was why, how come we had Unemployed Graduates Association. Today, by virtue of the fact that we have good management, your lights are on. Those days, you would buy a lot of fuel to be able to power your production. How much was it going to left for you to execute other aspects of your situation? So that's what I'm saying, that if you look at it on the face value, you would think that, oh, we have borrowed more, but when you go into it and the kind of thing that we have done with it, it makes it vindicates our position that we needed to borrow. And that is how come realizing that borrowing in that extent will not help this economy. Now we are directing the focus to the Ghanaian, to the ordinary Ghanaian, to make sure that they also contribute toward the development of this country.
Are you running away from your earlier promise of changing the economy from taxation to production? If now you would have to rely on taxes to develop the state rather than engaging more in production to get revenue for the state, so are you now receding on that promise, that decision of changing the economy from that taxation to production?
So the last time during the recruitment of by the security services, we saw the number of youth that were that massed up at the various recruitment centers. Now, one of the things that this budget seeks to do is to address the problem with youth unemployment. We have realized that a lot of the youth could be, as it were, we could channel their energies into productive ventures, i.e. businesses, farming, and so on and so forth. Their major concern, their major problems have to do with access to flexible credit. And this budget, with this e-levy, seeks to mobilize enough revenue to give to the youth to go into productive ventures, where they will be their own bosses. By so doing, you are still embarking on productivity, moving away from taxation or taking money from the citizenry and giving it back to society to do productive ventures. That is all this budget is there for this budget.
Right.
We are not doing anything different. All like the years that they introduced taxes that still the youth could not access credit. That is what we are doing.
I see.
And for that matter, this budget must pass for this country to move on.
Right. Thank you so much. This budget must pass for this country to move on. So an admission that the budget has not yet been approved?
No, because if the appropriation is not concluded, you cannot say that everything
is approved.
Yeah, so you want to go through those phases and then make sure.
Now, your final question before I move on. Except as otherwise, this is Article 104 of the 1992 Constitution, and it talks about voting in Parliament. And it says, Article 104(1) of the 1992 Constitution says, except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting, with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. 2 says the Speaker shall have neither an original nor casting vote. 3, 104(3) says where the votes on any motion are equal, it shall be taken to be lost. And then 4 says where Parliament is considering a bill to amend the Constitution, or where the voting is in relation to election or removal of any person under this Constitution or under any other law, voting shall be in secret. And then 5 finally says a member who is a party to or a partner in a firm which is a party to a contract with the government shall declare his interest and shall not vote on any question relating to the contract. But
so yes,
I'm very much interested in the
3 for me.
It says the point 3 says where the votes on any motion are equal, it shall be taken to be lost.
Exactly.
But I want to place emphasis on Article 104(1) of the Constitution. That's where I want to ask you that way. Except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority members present and voting, with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. On the day that the majority approved the budget, did they have 138 members of Parliament?
Because you see,
present and voting.
See, you have to have majority present.
138 present. That's the 138 we are talking about. Present and voting.
So read further.
Let's not leave the voting.
No. So read further what it says about the voting. That you need majority of those present to vote.
Yes.
So you don't need the 138, all of them to be voting.
No, present and voting.
So
but the question is, the first Deputy Speaker admitted that once he sits in for the Speaker of Parliament, he doesn't have the power to vote. So did the first Speaker of Parliament vote?
He didn't vote.
Then if 137 people voted,
yes,
the Constitution is clear on that. It says where the votes are equal, the motion would have been taken.
No, let's go to 101 again. You read everything. See, first of all, to be able to vote on a matter, you need half. The first question you ask yourself, did the majority satisfy that provision? When half of the members.
But if the first Deputy Speaker was actually presiding that day, how then would you count the first Deputy Speaker who sat in for the Speaker as a member of Parliament, part of the majority?
So what in effect you are telling us that on that day the people of Bekwa were not represented, which cannot be. He went to Parliament as a member of Parliament on that day. What this provision means is that though you are there as a member of Parliament, when it comes to voting, you have no right by virtue of the fact that you'll be acting as a speaker. That is all that it means. So he counted himself as a member of Parliament doing parliamentary.
There was a vote. Did he vote?
He didn't vote.
If he didn't vote, then on what basis did they approve?
No, because that's what I'm saying, that when you read the 104 again, it tells you that half of members of Parliament has to be there, and out of that half, majority of that half. So if you have 138, it means if you divide 138 plus 1. That is all that you need to get the decision passed. You don't need all the 138 to also vote again.
Right.
That is not what the constitution is saying.
Okay.
So what the majority did, they followed due process. They were in line with the constitution, and that is why nobody is taking them. I have even heard that Richard Belaska had gone to the Supreme Court for interpretation on the matter.
Of course, some of us were even considering going to.
No, yes, sometimes it helps. It helps
because it is only the Supreme Court that is able to interpret this part of the constitution.
Yes, I wouldn't have any problem with
the minority also thinks that they did the right thing. Likewise, the majority.
So that's why I was.
Let's wait till the interpretation is out, and we know who did the right thing.
But is it not curious? You see, when we read the 3, 1043, it tells you that where the decision is even, it means the budget has been what? Rejected.
Yes.
So I was telling you what prevented the minority on the day.
Because to them the budget has
No, because
rejected.
you see, that's what I'm saying, that it is part of the parliamentary gymnastics.
But if I reject something, and some other group of people, sat to approve that thing, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it has been rejected. I don't need to be
if
there.
you really believe in what you did, you go back and then kill it. You know, when you are killing a snake,
going back means that they had rescinded on their earlier decision to reject it. That's what it will mean. Anyway, but thank you so much for your submission. You know, keep your messages coming in. So I'll give me 5 more minutes in addition. You have 5 minutes to deal with the corruption, the fight against corruption.
You see, honestly speaking,
you are using part of your 5 minutes to respond.
Let me just use just a minute to just rebut some of the things that he said that are factually inaccurate. Justice, he actually made statement to the effect that why is it that the minority did not go to parliament, and on the day when majority came to rescind the decision of the decision that was taken on the 26th by the minority when they rejected the budget. You see, I believe that the first deputy speaker have actually demonstrated that indeed either he is engaged in mischief, because some of the things that he did, I bet to differ. I doubt even somebody with a certain appreciation of law in level 100 will commit such.
Don't forget that we are talking. He's a lawyer.
I'm not disputing, but lawyers have committed serious legal blunders in this country. Lawyers have committed elementary.
I think that we need to move away from this and.
No, but the point is this, Justice. Did the minority leader, Honorable Haruna, did he not move a motion? Was that motion not admitted by the speaker? Was it not seconded by Honorable Mahama Yariga? Where in the constitution or parliamentary standing orders that tells you that in the event that a motion has been moved and has been seconded, a motion moved admitted by the speaker himself, we are talking about his illegal luminary. Where in the law, the standing orders or the constitution that tells the speaker that when somebody moves a motion, you admit the motion, and that motion was seconded, you rule on that motion? Where do I need somebody? Do I need to become a lawyer before I appreciate this aspect of the constitution or the standing orders of parliament? So what he has committed is committed an elementary error.
Okay, he has committed an error.
So when it comes to the issue about what do you call it,
fight against corruption.
See, the truth is one. I think President Nana Danko Akufo-Addo, one, he has no shame, he has no principle, he has no value, and probably he doesn't even listen to himself. He doesn't respect the good people of this country. Because if the president respects the people of this country, the president will not master any moral courage. And still even made mention of the word corruption. A man that has become a satisfied corruption clearing agent of his appointees, a man that is being described in one of the epistles of Martin Amidu as the mother serpent of corruption, a man who when his minister engaged in a clear case of procurement breaches, goes around the country and clear his minister, a man who virtually celebrates corruption in his administration, still have the moral courage to look Ghanaians in the face.
How did he do that?
Just this. I will say that the president that accepts the findings against Charlotte Osei, because according to the findings, Charlotte Osei breached procurement, what we call it, laws. And you have a minister who admitted before parliament, sworn on oath, admitted before Parliament that indeed there was a procurement breaches. What happened to that minister? The president is telling us the man was in charge of the procurement authority. That it was crystal clear that he was selling contract here and there, contract that did not go through procurement processes. And the man is working freely. And this is a president telling that he's still fighting against corruption. This is a president of the republic who there has been a clear case of what they call it, people engaging in diversion of previous funds. What has he done about it? Look at the Jaffa deal. Look at the PDS stinking scandal. Am I the one who referred to the PDS as and what we call it a transaction that is riddled with fraud? It's not a sector minister that described the PDS as an agreement that has a characteristic of fraudulent activity. Am I the one who described it and said despicable manner? What happened to what they call Boatie Jacko? Was it not dismissed on the basis of what? Inflated Ameri renovation agreement? That's not what happened. Have there not been on instances where the president himself at the office of the presidency were told that there's a formula that they distribute corruption that led to the unfortunate what they call gruesome murder of Ahmed Swale? So what is the president talking about? This is a president who has become a walking example of corruption. This is a president who do not only endorse corruption, he's a chief architect, participant when it comes to corruption. And yet he has the moral courage, the audacity, the effrontery to look us in our face and tell us that indeed he is fighting against corruption. How do you feel as a journalist? Don't you feel scandalized?
Is he not fighting?
Don't you feel insulted? That this is a president.
The establishment of the
which establishment are you talking about? That he keep on claiming his corrupt appointees.
The special prosecutor has told Ghana.
The one that he appointed Martinabinu endorsing
the new SP has told Ghana
that he has started even lamenting that the amount of money allocated to his what they call his office is inadequate. It's not the same way Martinabinu started. Telling us, gave us what we call heads up about the fact that the money that has been allocated to.
But he said there are 31 cases.
31 cases. See, justice. When we see, honestly speaking, I have come to a point and realized that President Nana Dankwa has no modicum of sheep. He has no principle. He has no values. Indeed, he does not respect the good people of this country.
I see.
If the president respects the good people of this country, he will be the last person to talk about corruption.
I see.
See, aside the fact that he has created an enabling environment that has made corruption conducive, that has made corruption, I mean, something that people are so much eager to engage themselves in because he himself has demonstrated that he has no any desire to fight against corruption. This is a president who go and fight against people who are fighting against corruption. What happened to Domelevu? The man who became what they call it, who was being celebrated by the good people of this country, the man who was at the center of fighting against people who are engaged in corruption, the president was rather fighting against what they call Domelevu. The president was fighting against even journalists who were exposing stinking corrupt in his administration. He was fighting against them. So if you have such a president come and stand before the good people of this country and say child is corruption, I'm fighting against corruption, and look at some of the examples that he gave. Now I'm prosecuting the opposition members. Listen, see the list, how do you call it? The simplest thing for any regime to do is to go after your political opponent. We are asking the president to muster the courage, like President Mahmoud did when he went after his own appointees. We are telling the president that listen, their corruption allegations, the corruption deals in your administration is so pervasive. At a point in time, it became a daily affair. You wake up in the morning before you deal with this corruption issue, another one will surface. It got to a point. That is why it got to a point. You wake up, there's a bus scandal. You wake up, there's what moving penal and what we call diversion of previous work. You wake up in the morning, there's what we call diversion of what we call it fertilizer. Tricycles are missing, excavators are missing. The business scandal, the Japan stinking there, the bus scandal. It got to a point in time. You don't wake up every blessed. See, it got to a point even the NBC. We became so exhausted that we don't even know which of the corruption cases we should dwell on. Okay. So you see, the president should give us a break. Enough of the empty rhetoric. I thought that after being in power for almost about 5 years, he will elevate what they call his leadership beyond rhetoric. Engaging in empty rhetoric all the time, he's so much comfortable with throwing words about. We want practicality. Demonstrate the idea you are committed when it comes to fighting against corruption. And stop hiding behind throwing your corrupt appointees in the name of state institutions. How many of the state institutions have not been sabotaged? Have not been undermined?
Okay. Thank you so much, Dada, for your submission. Kindly take us home, Ms. Also. Is government really fighting corruption?
So, first of all, I was surprised when my brother said Martin Abidu, according to Martin Abidu, the president is the mother for corruption. When they say Martin Abidu had named John Mahama as government official one in the Airbus scandal. So if there's something, this is correct. So you see, when you are you have to be very careful, because that person has said terrible things about your leader, and government official one is in the mind.
But you as a person, you as a member of a New Patriotic Party communications team, do you believe Martin Abidu and the things he say?
First of all, I always want to side on this. Let's go on.
Do you believe Martin Abidu on some of the things he has said so far, or the things he say?
I have my doubt about some of the things that he do.
Okay.
And so that's why I was very surprised when my brother decided to go on that tangent.
Very well.
If you decide to rely on Martin Abidu, you may be, as it were, biting your own fingers. The president said he's fighting corruption.
Right.
Just as if someone says he's fighting corruption, there are certain indices you look out for to checkmate him. Is it true that ever since he came, state institutions that are supposed to fight corruption, their budgets has been increased? The answer is yes. Is it true that since he came into office, the Right to Information Bill has been passed? The answer is yes. Is it true that since he came to office, Witness Protection Act has been passed? The answer is true. My brother could not tell me any corrupt act that this government has not investigated.
I see.
Almost any single.
So are you saying that this government, appointees of this government, have not engaged in any corruption or corruption-related activity?
How would I know? First of all, corruption is something that is done undercover. You understand? Unless you are part of it, it's very difficult to identify. That's why you see, always we can sit on TV and then on radio set and say people are corrupt. However, when we go to court, the name of the game is evidence. That is why it is always very difficult to take people to court and get conviction. It is not easy at all. So we can lament on this. However, the issues still remain that all the allegations that were made about officials of this government have been investigated.
I see.
And it has come out that they are not corrupt. So I don't know where he is coming from that he is making all these wild allegations. You understand? So if indeed they are corrupt, what are they doing as citizens of this country? You can go and fight it out and say that this man is corrupt. But so long as the president feels or thinks that we don't have enough evidence, you cannot just go to court for going sick. Just because someone has alleged that Mr. A or Mr. B is corrupt. You don't do that. You know that a lot of NDC former officials will be in jail.
I see.
It doesn't work like that.
Oh, really?
Yes. You want to interject?
What did the health minister say when he appeared before Parliament? With respect to procurement, what did he say? The health minister.
Which procurement? You are talking about COVID?
When it comes to what they call the Sputnik V.
No, but you are talking about an emergency situation. And the Constitution makes clear provisions. When you are in a state of emergency, there are certain things that you do.
Did you even follow that emergency protocol?
You see, what I'm saying is that there are different.
No, you are talking about.
So you are not. What I'm saying is that there has not been a single issue.
Osafuma will use 1 million crew and associates. Was that an
why don't you allow him to make his
was hauled to the court to come and defend that issue. What happened?
When they hauled him out.
You see, that's what I'm saying, that issues to do with corruption has been taken seriously. You see, if it indeed is true, no, you are not taking it seriously. You are rather making political fuss out of it. But if indeed it's true that people that we know are corrupt, and you know that they are siphoning state monies from our tax, then it is incumbent on you as a citizen and responsible citizen.
We have to get going. We also kindly step down from it. Well, our time is up. He never interjected.
So let us, as it were, encourage the institutions, as the president said, to do what is right, so that we can rid ourselves of some of these issues.
Thank you so much also for coming. I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you so much, Dela. I'm so grateful. This is time will last on the program. Make a time with us same time tomorrow. Let me say a very big thank you to my director Sewa, also to my cameraman Budu, and to Sir Chess, my sound man, my producers Ruben, Latifa, Oso, and everyone who made it a point for us to have a successful program tonight. Many thanks to all of you. And then also finally, happy birthday to my friend, my very good friend and a brother, Kwesi Kwatin, who is the PR for Ministry of Education. Also to Patricia Bonsu. You are with one of the radio stations in Kumasi. You're also celebrating your birthday today. Good evening. Happy birthday to you. This time will last. Make a time with us tomorrow. Goodbye.
Truly African.
Right. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to the newspaper segment here on